So whether you signed up for this or not, tonight is a very special, unique service. And that is one of my favorite things to do because beyond everything else that I do as a rabbi, I am first and foremost an educator. And so tonight we call this our learner service. It's an opportunity to breathe a little bit of meaning and learning into the service. And it does mean that you get to ask questions as well. I'll give you the signal. But so many of us struggle with what to do once we get into this space, even those of us that are born Jews. So for most of us, praying is actually really hard. For those who grew up with prayer, it may have been coerced or forced. I apologize for that. And so that when you don't pray or you fail to pray, you then carry around a lot of guilt. Sorry for that also. And some of us might pray and feel like we're just not doing it correctly. Some of us approach prayer with the best of intentions, but then then the disruption set in, and we're distracted to think about almost anything other than prayer. Some of us come to services with partners who are deeply moved and deeply engaged, and we look at them like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I could do that too, because for us it might feel lifeless or stiff. And some of us are just repeating the words that we learned in our religious schools as children, and we don't even know what they mean. We're just kind of singing along with the melody. So you're all in good company, is what I'm trying to say, because praying is hard. And finding peace and tapping into the meaning and the mystery, finding answers, feeling connected, it is a lifelong journey to even kiss it, to kiss that goal. But we're going to try to make some headway tonight, and we're going to unlock some of that meaning and the rituals around prayer, so maybe the next time that you walk back into a service, you feel a little bit more comfortable, you know a little bit more about what's going on in the room and in the space. We're going to break down some of those barriers, whether they are intellectual barriers or physical barriers, like what do I do with my body? Everyone's doing something, and I don't know what this is, or even spiritual barriers. Together, we're going to start to learn about what we do here on a Friday night. So to begin, I'm going to ask you to do a few things. First, relax. Yeah, you're not the only person in the room who doesn't understand Hebrew. Hadar's probably the only one. No, there's more. I believe you me. You're not the only person who wonders what these prayers mean and why we continue to say them. You're not the only person who feels funny about all the bowing or feels uncomfortable and like you're trying on clothes that are not yours. Mm-hmm. You're not the only one who doesn't sing particularly well. And you're not the only one who has feelings that make it difficult to relax in an uncomfortable setting. So you're in good company. All you need to do is relax. It is an art, a learned art. No one, by the way, is born into this community, this Jewish community, knowing how to pray. It is completely learned by practice, by doing. It's like the 10,000 hour rule. So I'm not suggesting that you are going to be on this journey for 10,000 hours starting tonight. The third thing, second, if I forget to address something, you've had a burning question and you're thinking, great, I didn't know this was the learning service, but the rabbi's going to answer my question and I don't. You can always come and see me. My inbox and office are always open, and I will give time at some point during the service to just see if I've missed anything. Don't be shy. And third, imagine this is the beginning of your prayer journey, a journey where you will find some measure of comfort in and connection to our prayers, or the choreography, or the music, or the meaning. You don't have to do all three. You can just be comfortable in one of those things. And so we're going to begin with our first lesson. What is Kabbalat Shabbat? Everyone says it. What does it mean? The truth is the prayer service itself is broken up into sections. And the first section that we have, and we only have it on Friday night, not on Shabbat morning, and not during the week, is called Kabbalat Shabbat. But before we even do that, I want to talk a little bit about keva versus kavanah. And has anyone heard those terms before? Oh, I almost saw your hand go up. I was like, what? I taught that already? Amazing. So keva and kavanah, the best way to think about that is keva is sort of fixed liturgy, the things that we have in our prayer book that do not move around, right? You open up the prayer book, you know that the Baruch Hu's always going to be on XYZ page, right? And then the kavanah is what we feel. The spirituality, the things that move us to feel something, to connect to something bigger. So the next few prayers will be part of Kabbalat Shabbat. And I'm going to stop talking and we're going to pray. It is a group of psalms or prayers that we recite at the beginning of Friday night services, and the Talmud teaches us in a story that every Friday evening, just as the sun began kissing the horizon, Rabbi Hanina would wrap himself in a talit and announce, "Let us go and greet the Sabbath queen." So this pronouncement would later be expanded to include all of those things that we call Kabbalat Shabbat in our service. But the idea here is that we imagine Shabbat as a beautiful bride, right? A bride that is just, there's nothing we want to do more than just welcome her into the space, tell her she looks beautiful, tell her life hasn't been worth living until she walked into the room. And that's the way we're supposed to feel about Shabbat. And so a couple pieces on choreography. One of the prayers that we will do next is Lecha Dodi, and we are going to act out this notion of Kabbalat Shabbat, of receiving Shabbat. And so we are going to, in that last stanza, turn our bodies physically towards the back door. I'll signal you, you don't have to memorize anything. And we are going to pretend that Shabbat is literally coming into our space. And there's one more piece of choreography that when we get to the words boi kala, which means come in bride, we bow to that bride twice. You'll see a lot of bowing, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but it's about imagining that the most royal and special person has walked into this space, and we do honor by bowing.